All right, you loyal listeners. Welcome to another episode of Agency Intelligence Podcast, where I give you that real agency intelligence and not the artificial that they try to make you believe out there. Hey, thank you. I am here with the man MC. Not just because, well, he is actually an MC. You guys don't know this dude does do some MCing on the side when the party is rocking. But this is Mr. Michael Cruz, one of the top ERIE agents in America. I'm an ERIE agent, so I can say that. And he's shaking his head because he knows it's the truth. Michael, how are you, buddy?
Jason Cass, I'm doing phenomenal. Here to be with you is a pleasure.
Yeah. Today, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about our agencies. We're going to talk about why we dominate the captives. We're also going to talk about some of the new stuff that's come out. I haven't actually read about it, but I've heard a lot of agencies talking about how State Farm has cut people's commissions. I guess that'd be a terrible topic considering I'm wearing a red shirt. There was no correlation there. And if I stand up, Michael, you can see I've actually got, I think I have the Jake from State Farm outfit on. Jesus. Cass, what do? Go work for State Farm when you get off? No. All right. So check this out. Before I get on with my boy MC, I want to remind everybody about Indie Tech. It's coming up. I don't know when it is coming up, but most importantly, it's coming up the 2nd and 3rd. Okay. I don't know when this podcast comes out. February 2nd and 3rd is Indie Tech. But here's what you need to know. Brain Share is coming up on June 16th. If you've been to a Brain Share before, you're an AI Mastermind champion, automatically invited. If it sells out, it never goes to the general public. And it will sell out pretty fast. But if it goes to the general public, I had to move it from 100 people to 150 because I do want to get some of the general public in. It's February 1st, that Monday, and then Tuesday and Wednesday is going to be Indie Tech. So to the general public, I believe it goes on sale June 29th. That gives like 13 days for anybody who's been invited before to sign up before it gets sold out. So I just want to remind you that you can find out some information at AIindietech.com. If you're getting this before June 29th, you're not going to see it. It's hidden on the website, except for those people who have a link. So remember, if you've been to AI or BrainShare before, or you're a champion, you're automatically invited and you'll get that invite from you. Keep in mind, AIindietech.com. It's going to be fabulous. I'm so excited about what we've got going on out there. MC, brother, let's talk about what it's like. Tell us people know you, they follow you, but let's say that not everybody does, okay? So tell them about your agency, what it looks like in the makeup.
Yeah, Michael Cruz here. I'm in Maryland, right outside of Washington, D.C. I started my agency in 2015 from scratch through an ERIE scratch agency program. Our makeup is about 85% personal, 15% commercial, and like many agents trying to grow that commercial side. And had the pleasure of partnering with you back in 2024 for our virtual employee companies. And, super excited about the future of our industry.
It really is. You know how many people... We'll talk about it because virtual employees are a huge, major part of my life. They're a huge, maybe they're even bigger in your life. How many virtual employees do you have that work in your agency right now, Michael?
7.
7. Yeah. 7. Not 6, 7. 6, 7, 6, 7. No, he said 7. And I am at 3. We had 4, but we took one of them and actually promoted them to one of the lead trainers at Virtual Intelligence. And, this is what happens when you start getting more efficient. You can start taking some of the work off of the great Ivana now. If you hook up with a virtual employee through Virtual Intelligence, she's the one training. She had 2 years in my agency, a year and a half in another agency, and I guarantee you she knows more about insurance than most insurance agents and licensed people do. So she's fantastic. But here's the key. They're answering the phone for me. Are they answering the phone for you, Michael?
Oh, yeah. We have a client-facing team that answers the phone.
Are you doing auto quotes with them?
Yep. We have a team that's all they do. The back office team does a lot of the admin stuff like quoting.
How about homes?
Yep. So they do all kinds of quotes. They do auto, home, commercial quotes.
Doing changes?
Yep. A lot of, admin changes, everyday changes that are very time consuming.
Yep. And you're bringing in the licensed person when the licensed person needs to be in that process, right?
Exactly. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Are they helping you with claims?
Yeah. So part of our claims process, we found a lot of the claims get stuck, either the first point of contact from the adjuster or the adjuster, talk to them, but the client doesn't know what the next step is. Every call that we get is either like, hey, I haven't heard from my adjuster, or I'm not happy with the results of the outcome. And we've trained our VEs to basically kind of, be the liaison. So what we do is we three-way call the adjuster with the client on the phone. If we don't get him on the phone, we leave a voicemail with the claim number. We also send an email, and all this is done by a virtual employee, that's
Mm-hmm.
being the liaison. Is It's been a huge help because a lot of times, like, people just want that hand holding. Like, if they call the adjuster, they're not leaving a voicemail, so the adjuster doesn't know that they call. So having someone in my team answer the call and kind of help that triage with the adjuster has been a huge win.
Absolutely. Everything he said, I echo. Sophia runs my claims department. She literally came to me 8 months in and told me that my claims department sucked. I'm not even joking with you guys. That's what she said to me. She said, Jason, she didn't say suck, but she said, Jason, I think that our claims department can use a lot of improvement. And I literally looked at her and I thought to myself, Michael, like, how dare this girl? She's from another country. She's new into the insurance industry. She's been working here 8 months and she realizes, but that's the kind of person she is. She demands excellence from herself and she's going to demand excellence from the organization she's working. She gave me a list of things. I chose a couple of them, said execute those. She came back in a month and a half and started and just showed me that she was doing. I gave her permission. I said, do more, feel free. Then ERIE comes out with a program that if you have a certain percentage of people that actually turn the claim in with your agency, they give you a bonus at the end of the year. First year, we earned the bonus. I promise you, we would not have earned that bonus because not only we literally used to be our strategy of call the carrier. We would collect some
Yes.
information, we would turn them over. But the other part is that now when people have another claim and they did 2 years ago, and let's say they have a claim
Yeah.
now they know what to expect. Now they are calling Sophia. They are getting that feedback. Someone is following up with them in that 24 hours. Hey, did the adjuster call you? Everything that you're talking about right there. And we were able to execute on that. When I just think that I Michael, you're like me, man. You watch what they do on a day-to-day basis and how it frees up your licensed staff, and you're like, oh my God, this is why people are so frustrated in this insurance industry because they have these licensed people doing these unlicensed tasks. It all starts with this. Almost every issue you have in the agency comes down to that frustration. You
Yeah,
agree?
absolutely. I mean, if you look at our process for claims, like you said, like, let's say someone calls and they have questions about the claim, they transfer the call to the licensed agent. Let's say that the licensed agent realize they have a conversation, they educate the customer on the deductible, on the type of claim, and the customer decides to file the claim. They transfer that back to basically the non-licensed agent to do that full intake that can take 15, 30 minutes, whatever it is. And then we explain what the next steps are, because
Mm-hmm.
we can control now the experience during that claims intake. Hey, expect a call from the adjuster. When you call the adjuster, make sure you're leaving a voicemail and mentioning your claim number. These are all little things that make the claim successful, and we can control it now because we took it, and we can actually take it because we have the bandwidth to take those calls. Where most agency, what happens if you don't have virtual employees helping you with the phone? Somebody calls, they miss the call because we're on the phone with another client having a 30-minute account review. They get frustrated, so they call the carrier directly. Now the whole claims experience is completely different. And, because we had the staff and the bandwidth with virtual employees to take that call and not miss that call, that made us that much different.
Correct. And let's take that same scenario, loyal listeners, as he said. So he's got that person refuses to give it back to somebody else. Now that person is on the phone, your licensed person. As Michael said, the call comes in and you miss them. And let's say that they don't call the carrier. Let's say they leave a message and say, "Hey, give me a call back." Then they get busy, and now your licensed person is trying to track them down. Let's
Yep.
say they get a hold of them a day, 2 days later. Now it takes another 24 hours to get the adjuster out there. It's been 4 or 5 days since the claim happened. Now here's what happens. You're their best friend at the baseball game happens to talk about how they just had an auto claim with State Farm, and State Farm had an adjuster out there in 30 minutes and 30 in 24 hours.
Yep.
And they're thinking to themselves, now, wait a minute, it took me 4 days.
Yep.
It took 4 days because you had the wrong person doing the wrong or the different task.
Exactly.
That's what I mean. Like, so many of the problems that happen internally and externally are because we did not have the right person doing the job. And a lot of people are like, hey, well, you can't take away licensed tasks. Licensed tasks, you're going to take them away and give them to an unlicensed person. No, we're taking away unlicensed tasks from someone who never should have been doing it in the first place. Now, I'm not going to beat up the industry and say, like, oh, well, we should have. What do you mean we're beating them up? Look, when the economy of scale was $5 and $7 an hour, and you could hire anybody off the street, and workers were plentiful, people who were responsible, people who were committed to your business, the type of people that some of your best employees are, when those people were everywhere for $5, $7, $10 an hour, it only made sense. Like, let's get them licensed. But if in 1970 labor was hard to find and the cost of hiring somebody was expensive, we wouldn't even be in this situation today. We would have already had licensed people back in our unlicensed people back in the 70s and 80s. We're just to this point now where the pressure has made it to where we have to change. It doesn't get any harder than that. It really truly doesn't. It's very easy to look at and see.
You bring an important point with the phone tagging. We're experiencing the same thing. If you don't answer that phone and you don't resolve that problem, it's super hard to get people back on the phone. And guess
Mhm.
what? Even if you're calling back and they're calling you back and they can't get you and then you're playing this phone tag, that creates a really bad experience. Even though you're doing what you're supposed to do, even though you were busy, legitimately you were in a call, you couldn't answer that call. But that's why you have to have the bandwidth to answer these calls and not let these customers walk away. And we're able to do that, to your point. When I put ads out and I'm looking for entry-level work, I'm getting 200 applicants. But guess what? 90% of them are unqualified. It's not,
That's right.
the quality is not there. When we go overseas, and we put out these ads and we get, people in, yeah, some people may have a little bit of an accent, but when you look at their resume, these are people college graduated. These are people that are staying
Bachelor,
in their jobs.
master's degree.
These are
Yes.
doctors and lawyers, and it's just
Mhm.
wild. And the reality of the thing is, like, we need responsible people in our industry. That we cannot afford to have a lower entry level, someone that's going to call out on Mondays because they're hungover from partying all weekend. Someone that's not consistent, someone that's just not interested in doing this job. And then that's what we need to complement with people, our virtual employees, because these are people that rely on this job for a living. They have
Mhm.
families, and it's just really hard to find, and you have to do it. Your agency demands that kind of caliber of individual.
Yeah, and it's funny because, like, every other industry's done it. Technology went overseas, not because they're less, because the talent's smarter, the talent's better. And it's not that the talent's bad in America, it's just not enough of it, right? That we have. Healthcare, we get most of our doctors, some of the best doctors we have in America come from overseas, right? When you start looking at everything, this is just something that we're behind in. Now, Michael, one of the things that you pointed out time to me too that I had never thought about is that when we talk about the minimum wage being $15 an hour, and you said to me, you said, no, Jason, actually, it's not because and I'm sounding old here, the Macy's store down the road or the J.C. Penney's is starting at $18 an hour. The McDonald's down the road is starting at $17 to $18 an hour. So 15 might be what the government says, but a guy who's getting into the lawn care or landscaping business, like my son, who's 21 years old, turned 21 on May 11th of this year, he makes $21 an hour and he's worked at that place for 2.5 months and he doesn't know anything. They still have him doing weed eating and he makes $21 an hour, and I'm thinking to myself, like, damn. I mean,
Yep.
he's bringing home a check of almost $900 a week after taxes. He's got so much damn money, he doesn't know what to do with it. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, now, wait a minute. So I'm going to tell him to come into my office and make 15 or make 17 or make 19? He's going to say, no, Dad, pay me more. I'm going to keep doing the weed eating.
And
right?
when you think about what it requires, you have to learn multiple systems. You have to learn multiple carriers. If you do something wrong, it could cost financially thousands of dollars to the
Mm,
carrier, to the agency, to the client. So the level of pressure that we're putting, it is not a $15 an hour job. It
it's
is
not.
a lot more. And like to your point, the labor you're gonna get for that entry is just it's not there anymore. It has disappeared. And the sooner we accept that and we realize like that level of labor is outsourced and overseas, is the quicker that we can kind of start competing and keep our agencies thriving.
Now let's educate them a little bit, Michael, since we live in this world. Okay. So, loyal listeners, you get this a lot where it's like, Jason, there's no way that I could have a Colombian answering my phone. There's just no way. It just couldn't happen. I'm telling you. Here's what I always like to say. Okay. We are in Southern Illinois. Most of our towns are anywhere between 5,000 to 7,000 people. They're about 20 miles apart. There's nothing but cornfields and pigs in between all of them. And if you want to go so far, and I'm saying this funny, but I'm saying it real, this is Trump country. Okay. So if there's any place in America where you would think they're not going to put up with some immigrants answering the phone, which they're not immigrants, they don't live here, you would think it would be here. But the person who gets the most Google reviews in our agency is Sophia. It's Lordland. It's our service team. Yes, our producers get them as well. But I'm telling you, it's amazing when you see that. So let's educate them a little bit. Whenever we look at the world, all right, now I didn't know this until a couple years ago, but when we look at the world, they judge language on an A to C system. A1 to A2 to B1 to B2 to C1 to C2. Okay, just know that, loyal listeners. The lowest form of communication, to put it nicely, would be an A1, and the highest would be a C2. So an A1 barely knows English. I mean, they're using their hands to get across what they're trying to tell you and stuff. You've been there. You're getting into B's, you're probably getting there, able to kind of carry along the conversation. They understand some things. B2, they're getting a little bit better, but they're still kind of stopping and thinking like in the middle of a sentence, like what's that next word, right? You get into C1s and C2s. Now you're talking about people who have a very low accent and just as fluid. Keep in mind, Michael Cruz right here, first language he learned was Spanish. He's from
Right.
Cuba, right? So now you can hear his English. He would be considered, even though he's not, he's an American citizen and all that, we would consider him a C2. Okay, because he's top of the line. He's not thinking. He's fluent. He's actually able to say things. You can barely even tell that he would have been born in Cuba. Those are what we call C2s. Now, the reason why I tell you that, everybody, is this is why you're upset with your company. Though that you'll be like, oh, I got those VEs and they were terrible. And that, well, you know why? Because the company has to charge more for the C1s and C2s. I mean, a lot for the C2s. So what they do is they go with the B1s or B2s so they can pay them less so they can make a bigger margin on the money they're charging you. Because most VE companies charge about what we charge. But we go after C2s, occasional C1s. Don't get me wrong. If they've got a huge college degree and they've got some experience already working in an American corporation or something, we're going to go with the C1. But that's why we charge what everybody else does. But we have a higher quality person that lowers our profit margin. But the fact is, we're able to deliver what we tell people we're going to deliver. That's a little bit of a. I've never talked about that on my podcast before, Michael, but it gives them a little bit of insight. And I know why that's important to them because I remember when I first learned that 2.5 years ago, I was like, holy crap, I didn't know this whole system was out there. Michael, anything to add that I may have kind of left off or anything?
No, I think one of the biggest changes that we've made is the interview process. We basically pick up the phone and have a quick 5-minute conversation with an applicant just to see like the communication skills. And that's what makes us different. I mean, the amount
Mm-hmm.
of people that we interview on a weekly basis, we get better and better at finding the right people. An agency owner that goes and recruits once in a while, once every 3 years, you're not going to have the same level of experience as someone
So
that's
right.
recruiting every single week, you know? So the amount
Mhm.
of vetting that we do, it's a huge tax savings that a lot of people don't realize. You know, they don't realize the risk that they're taking. You know, if this person doesn't work out, you're a month in training, now you have to start over. Um, so I really think that at the end of the day, yes, it's getting more expensive to outsource, but the value is just a lot higher than the cheap labor that people were thinking before. Now we're finding higher quality people, you know, and we're getting more output out of these people because we're finding the right people for the right job.
Mhm. Yeah, cheap labor is what I used to think of too before I had when I was back early in 2017, 2018. They're not cheap labor. And now that I own a company, believe me, it's not cheap labor. And then we have to comply with the rules and the laws of those other countries, right? They have sometimes you know what I always say, Michael? You never realize like we always bitch and complain about being a business owner in America because we got all these things that we have to do. Hell no. I mean, you ought to try to be in these other countries. All of a
Right.
sudden, you go, "Wow, in America, we have it made as a business owner." Because I mean, they have things thrown on them that like we just have to comply with those different types of things, and so they're not cheap labor anymore. Number one, because of the government that inflicts us on us, but number two, we go through a lot of people, and I want to really exclamate that point that Michael said. When somebody submits to us online and says, "I want to become a worker," we pick up the phone and we have a 3 to 5 minute conversation. If we find out they're not a C1 or C2 right off the bat, we push them out the door. They're not allowed into our system because we understand as Americans that is one of our highest priorities is making sure they communicate in a very effective manner. And we've learned that throughout history. And then we learn all those other things that we've learned from recruiting so many people. But that's a good point that a lot of people don't think about what you said, Michael. They really truly do. So, why do we dominate the captives? Because they can't do anything that Michael and I have talked about. They can't. They can't do anything that we've talked about. One of the things we're going to go to it. If you run a captive, can you do this, Michael? Tell them about your 4-day work week.
Yeah, May 2024, we started a 32-hour 4-day work week in my agency. Basically, the agency opens 5 days a week, but most of my staff really only works 4 days a week. And it was a wild idea. You know, it was kind of, you know, not traditional at all. But I decided to do it because there was a real burnout from the hard market. Like my staff just genuinely could not, you know, did not want to. They dragged their feet to come to work because every call was people complaining about the rates.
Uh-huh.
We couldn't move people even if we wanted to because the carriers didn't have an appetite. So and they were also getting rid of clients at the same time. So it was like the perfect storm. Um, and I couldn't pay my people more money. Like there's a cap of how much an agency can pay and how much we can compete on pay compared to the big guys. Like if you talk to a lot of the big brokers, Jason, you see the kind of wild salaries that they pay, and then
Yeah.
the production requirements, it just doesn't match. Like the money wise, what the producer is doing versus what is getting paid, you're looking at probably like 6 7 year return on that money, which we don't have that flexibility,
Uh-huh.
and it's just not sustainable. So, you know, what I found is the next biggest thing was basically working less. You know, a lot of people want to work remote, people want to work less. Every time somebody asks for a day off at an agency, it's like, and we've experienced it with our own agencies, right? Because it really puts that pressure on everybody. And what's the reason why time off is so, you know, hard on agencies is that we rely on in single individuals. You know, only Mary does COIs or only this guy does that. And when that guy is out, that whole process stops in the agency. So thankfully, because the way our agency is set up, it allows for someone to be able to leave in a day in the week, and then the agency continues because we've figured out, hey, now that we've been doing this whole experiment with the 4-day work week, we realized we got to cross train. This guy that only does personal has to learn commercial too. And it forced us to become better, to be more efficient, you know.
Really?
And to your point, like it was an experiment, you know, it was a wild idea. And thankfully we just hit our 2 years now. I'm really happy with the outcome. A lot more benefits came out of it than I thought. But to your point, I would have never had a chance to just try it out to see if it worked if I worked at a captive.
That's right. That's right. And here's the thing I take away from that, Michael, what you just said, and loyal listeners, here's what it is. He said there's no way I can afford them to pay more. So he thought like we normally think as independents. Well, they're stressed out. I'll just pay them more. He proved I can't. I'll give them what I think they want after surveying them, which was more time off, and they're happy. Hello, example 101, that paying money to people does not change the way they feel.
And in a way, it is a pay raise because you're working less for the same
Good
pay.
call.
So in a way, it is like a 25% or 20%, raise.
Increase. Good point.
But I think that's why we have to think differently in our agency space. We cannot compete with the same, in the same game. So what can we compete with? You have to be flexible. You have to have a good culture. You have to have good systems. A lot of these bigger shops cannot do that because it's just too many layers of bureaucracy that you have to deal with. You have to go ask for permission with 3 different levels. So let's use this advantage that we have, how nimble we can be with making decisions, and let's make the best of it, because a lot of the bigger shops or the captives unfortunately cannot do what we can do.
That's exactly right. My mentor told me a long time ago, he said, blessed are the flexible, for they don't get bent out of shape. I love that. And that's what you are. Hey, Michael, wrap it up for us, buddy. Any last minute things you want to say? Maybe something that didn't come up, anything you want to say to the world? This is your chance, man. We're worldwide right here.
Yeah, no, I think what's happening in front of us is that industry is changing. Um, we have to also be, forgiving with ourselves. When you look at the last 20 years, 25 years, we have dealt with so many changes. So sometimes it can feel like, man, am I good at this? Is this the right thing? And you can get frustrated because you feel like, you're not good enough or you're not getting the results you want, and just know that you're doing okay. We're doing okay as an industry. And we have to be also
Yeah.
realistic that we have dealt with a lot of changes, and everything is something new. But we have to understand that at the end of the day, when you look at your life and you look at your everyday life, this industry checks a lot of boxes. You can work remote. There is no, income limit of how much you can make. It's a
Yep.
it's a really noble industry. You're helping people, so as long as we have to keep all those things into perspective and understand that it is hard, but there's things that we can control, and things will get better. And
That's
as
right.
long as you understand that, I really believe, people need to kind of think long term. Don't think a year out, think
Yeah.
years out, because this is a long term play and we're going through a turbulence that is getting better, but it's temporary and it will get better.
That's right. It's the greatest industry God ever created. And if you think there's another one out there, please email me. But what you also need to do before we get off, thank you very much, Michael, for joining us, is her name is Athena, Athena, at virtualintel.com. That Intel has 2 L's. So that's Athena at virtualintel.com. Why do I give you her? Number one, she is the insurance influencer. I don't know if you've probably seen her videos out there, but email her and tell her that you want the list of 64 tasks that we do, that we have that agencies in our industry are having virtual employees do. So we get end of day reports from our VEs. We see exactly what the agencies are doing. And when we do that, we compare that. And we've come up with 64 tasks that agencies have their VEs doing. Some of those do require a license, but they're highlighted and they show you where the licensed person should be in the project or in the process. Reach out to Athena at Intel has 2 L's.com, and tell her you want it and she'll send it over to you. Michael, greatly appreciate being a friend of yours, being a fellow agency owner. One of the things I love about you and about a lot of agency owners that I have is when a client reaches in you and asks for a quote or gets any kind of service, they get top-notch understanding of what and who an independent insurance agent is. And to me, that's one of the most important things we can do because it helps everybody. Not only that, serving with you as a board member and being an owner of Virtual Intelligence, I learn every day from you. We do learn a lot. And what's amazing, everybody, loyal listeners, is him and I disagree a lot. We run our agencies different. We think differently about the way things processes are. I'm usually right, but that's how it goes. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. But anyways, Michael, thank you very much. And to all you loyal listeners, you know what I do because I do it for you. Tell me your thoughts and tell me your ideas, and I'm going to tell the world what you have to say. This has been Jason Cass, Michael Cruz. We are out.